Mr. President, just to identify a couple of problems from my perspective with the bill, let me start with this. The definition of social transition. It's a little hard to, it's written so broadly, it's hard to tell what exactly it means. It talks about, it says that social transition is defined as may involve social, legal, or physical changes, including adopting a name, pronouns, appearance, or dress that does not correspond to the individual's sex. So it makes it hard to tell, what things are just natural that kids do. Sometimes young men like to put their hair in a ponytail and they wear it that way for a while. Young women might wear, oversized sweatshirts that normally young men wear. It is pretty broad in language. And if we're going to, especially with bills where we're going to have some punitive aspects to them, I think it behooves us to write clearly what we're saying the covered entity has to do to withstand some of these punitive aspects of the bill. And let's talk about the punitive aspects of the bill. It subjects a covered entity, for example, if they don't report this behavior within 72 hours. It subjects them to a lawsuit, a civil action, and in addition to whatever civil damages they incur through that civil action, a penalty of up to $100,000. So they have 72 hours to report it. And Mr. President and Senators, this brings me to my biggest concern about the bill. When we write legislation like this, we start with this idea that parents are entitled to know what's going on with their kids, and if something big like this is happening, they should know. I absolutely agree. Parenting and the right to be a parent, the ability to be a parent, is extremely important, and we should all honor that. But we've written legislation that applies not just to the Cleaver family, leave it to Beaver, Cleaver, just in case you didn't get the reference, the Cleaver family, but all families. And I suspect that none of us in raising our kids quite lived up to the Cleaver family, but I don't think you have to. Most of us do our best parenting. We don't get it right all the time, but we try. We are trying, and that's the way most people are. But keep in mind that the way we've written this legislation, this requirement that doctors, nurses, school teachers report to parents applies to the Cleaver family, it applies to families like ours, but it also applies to other families that every one of us has in our communities. And I want to tell you about a family in eastern Idaho. They had a 7-year-old girl who was at the aquarium up in Idaho Falls. This family is actually from Pocatello. They just happen to be in Idaho Falls. And Mr. President, could I have permission to read from an Idaho State Journal article detailing this incident?
Having cited the source, Senator, you have it.
And this was...
Permission to read.
The article is March 17th, 2026.
So just a week or so ago.
This couple...
Go ahead and read it.
Thank you, Mr. President. And a separate article tells you that this is about a 7-year-old girl, biological father and stepmom. Stepmom is 31, biological father is 30. They've been charged with felony counts of injury to a child following an Idaho Falls police investigation conducted last month, according to police and court records that the Idaho State Journal obtained. The incident occurred on February 8th, 2026 at the East Idaho Aquarium. It gives the location. Bystanders witnessed the assault and recorded it on their cell phones, and officers later reviewed surveillance footage from the facility according to the report. What they saw was this 7-year-old getting severely beaten. Video showed Megan striking the child multiple times in the face with a shoe and her hand, knocking her to the ground and dragging her around the facility, the report says. Megan also used a key to scratch the girl's arm, according to court records. Separate footage captured Zachary pushing the child down by her mouth before carrying her outside, where he struck her head against a wooden structure and then used his shoulder to drive her head into a metal electrical box, according to police. Officers met with the child at her paternal grandmother's home in Pocatello, where she had multiple bruises and marks that were photographed, the report says. When interviewed at their residence, Zachary, that's the biological father, initially claimed the child's head striking the wall electrical box was an accident. But Megan, however, admitted to hitting the child with a shoe and a set of car keys, police said. After police obtained clear surveillance footage from the aquarium on February 9th, both suspects were re-interviewed on February 12th. Confronted with the footage, Zachary acknowledged he was out of line and wrote an apology letter, said police, adding that Megan also expressed regret and wrote an apology letter of her own. When we write these bills, when we write these statutes, we're writing them for all families. And so when nurses, when doctors, when educators tell us we need a little room to be able to handle these situations carefully, in 72 hours, being required to report this within 72 hours takes that out of our hands. And it means that we have to possibly go to a family like this and tell them something that that family may not be in a great place to hear. That's why they care about this. That's why they're complaining about the contents of this statute. That's why they asked us to at least make changes to that provision or not to pass it at all, to let them handle it, because they deal with the Cleaver family, they deal with families like ours, but they also deal with families like the family of this 7-year-old. I'd urge you to vote no on this bill. I think educators, I think nurses, doctors, I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt. They care about parenting. They know that parents have rights. They know that parents get to make these decisions. But how you go about that makes all the difference in the world. Thank you.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President,